listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone on the Mutual Broadcast Network, X-Zone Radio Network, and of course on Talkstar Radio and throughout Europe on Radio X. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and you can always find out what we are doing here in the X-Zone, past, present, and future, by visiting xzonerradio.com. My guest this hour is Dennis CARROLL, and we're going to be talking to Dennis, who is the director of the American Institute for Paranormal Research, and he is a published author, demonologist, specialist in strange phenomena, adventurer at large, paranormal, demonology, occult consultant, UFO cryptid researcher. And if you'd like to find out more about this very interesting gentleman who is my guest, we're joining him in South Carolina tonight. His website is DennisWCarroll.com. And Dennis W. Carroll, welcome to the X-Zone. How are you, sir?
Good, and how are you, Dennis?
I'm doing great, Dennis. Tell me, my goodness, you've got your fingers into every part of the paranormal, and you and I were discussing before we went to air that you're working on 3 books at the same time, plus investigations.
Yes, sir. I like to stay busy. I'm kind of a workaholic a little bit.
You think?
I've been involved in paranormal research and investigation for over 40 years.
Wow.
And I love it all. I tell people a lot of times that I want the whole pie, not just a slice of it. So I stay busy and I stay very interested. This is such a fascinating field that after 40 years, it's still fresh to me. There's always something to learn, and it's I tell people a lot of times that the paranormal field has no true experts. There are people who know a little bit more than others, but it is an ongoing educational thing. You must stay on top of this field, and you must constantly learn.
Now, what was it, Dennis, that prompted you to take such an avid interest in the paranormal?
Well, all of my life I've sort of been, I don't know, it might be the Irish in me, but I've always been kind of drawn to the otherworldly aspects of our life. But when I was about 15 years old, I had an experience that actually was a demonic experience, and where I actually saw what would be termed demons with my own eyes. There was no way I could explain it otherwise. And until that moment, it really, I will say, lit a fire under me to find out what else was in this world, the part of the world that is unseen to us. To me, the unknown is fascinating. And that just sort of ricocheted off of me and turned my life around, turned me into another direction. And when I wanted to go to learn and to study, as I said, it's so fascinating. It never gets old.
Isn't that interesting? Because I, too, had a demonic experience when I was 15, except her name was Sally Greenfield. She lived next door to me, and she broke my heart.
We run into a few of those, yes, sir.
In your part of South Carolina, what is the major source of paranormal activity?
Well, this is a very old region, although, matter of fact, I told a fellow in Britain one time that I was doing a radio show with him, and I said, when we say history over here, we go back about 300 or 400 years. When you say history in Great Britain, you go back about 3,000 or 4,000 years. That's right. So that's a big difference, but we still have a lot of history, a lot of historical areas just right around where I live. I tell people a lot, you would be fascinated and intrigued to find out just how much paranormal is in your own backyard, But we have a lot of Revolutionary War history. We have a lot of Civil War history. We have colonial history here. I have investigated many times in the great city of Charleston, one of the most haunted cities in the world. So we have a lot, that goes on here, and we have a lot of old stories and legends. I've told a lot of, I've been mentoring a lot of people. Matter of fact, I've had several groups over the years.
All right, Carol, Dennis, I hate to do this, my friend. Yeah. We've got to take a commercial break. Please stand by.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Excellent. Dennis W. Carroll's our special guest. What a guy. I love his energy. And Dennis and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Welcome back, everyone. Dennis Carroll is my special guest this hour. His website is www.denniswcarroll.com. That's DennisWcarroll.com. Geez, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you there, my friend, for the commercial break. So you attribute a lot of the paranormal activity to what is going on in your area due to the age. And I would imagine there's a lot of Civil War sightings in your area.
Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
We a lot of Revolutionary War. By matter of fact, my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
And so you will never find, most of the time, a place that doesn't have a lot, steeped in a lot of history, that doesn't have some paranormal connection to it. They go together. History and paranormal are found together a lot in different locations, especially in, the older historical areas. But every community back many years ago had its own ghost story. It had its own legends and tales that, that they told around there.
Now, you are an ordained minister, and I have to ask you, why did you also become an ordained minister?
Well, that kind of helps. A lot of times, if you're a demonologist, you go into situations where you have to wage what can only be called spiritual warfare. These forces can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're really dealing with. And I don't do a lot of personal exorcisms, but I do what mainly is called location exorcisms. In other words, I clean areas out spiritually of these forces. And of course, it helps to have a belief system. It helps to have faith in something. Faith is the greatest weapon that you can use against these things.
Where do demons come from, Dennis?
Well, according to Christian theology, they are fallen angels, the descendants of those that fell during the war in heaven. Shakespeare once said that hell is empty, the demons, the devils are here, and he was right in one aspect. If there is a hell, there are no devils in it. They are all up here with us, unfortunately. And what I have seen of these things, I have seen them face to face on several occasions. These things are very real and very dangerous. I have seen them destroy lives. I know of a lot of people right now who are 6 foot under put there by these kinds of forces. Oh, yes. It's something you only really want to play with. You know, a lot of times people push aside or don't think about the spiritual aspects of the world around us. I tell people many times, look at what's going on around you, and then think of the unseen, the things you can't see that's going on. There's more of that. And it's kind of foolish to ignore that. Sooner or later, it will sound like that old joke about the 500-pound gorilla in the room. You can't ignore it. Sooner or later,
That's right.
You're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know?
So tell me, Dennis, how do you differentiate when you're going into a location? Let's say you're called by somebody. How do you go in and differentiate between a regular haunting or a demonic situation?
Well, a lot of times I use this example. You look at a piece of paper. A human spirit might be able to manipulate that and move it a little bit. A demonic spirit would pick the table on which it sits up and throw it at you.
Oh.
So you're dealing with different levels of what I would term spiritual energy.
Now, is there
and a human spirit, although as you and I know that the human spirit, although you may have a lot of willpower to do something, is not that strong spiritual-wise as these other demonic-type forces. And these forces, if we believe what Christianity says, or what a lot of other religions around the world recognize these demonic things too. In Arabia, they're called the jinn. And you find them in Polynesian history. You find them with the Eskimos, with the American Indian tribes. All over the world, these things are recognized as what we would call or term evil spirits. And an evil spirit has much more, I feel like, more of a power to it in a spiritual sense and in an energy sense as well.
So how would you extricate, how would you get rid of an evil spirit, or I'm sorry, a demonic entity in a home?
Well, basically, a lot depends on the client's belief system, as I said before.
Yeah.
Belief is a very strong, powerful thing.
It is.
And faith, yes, faith in a higher being, as in God, accomplishes these things. But I tell a lot of my clients, if you don't believe, then I'm just here whistling Dixie because I can't really help you. It's not me. You have to believe in a higher power. You have to hold on to that belief. And that is the way you wage spiritual warfare against these things. You have to push them back. You have to constantly fight off their attacks.
Dennis, I don't know how many times I have said to my audience, the strongest power in the universe is the power of belief.
I'm going to tell you something else, sir. I believe sometimes belief in something, and we've talked about this with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them, a lot of times. Belief can almost sometimes make it real.
Yes.
I want to give you a quick example. You've heard of Slender Man.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
The being is called Slender Man, right? Well, he was, of course, a made-up entity on a website.
Yeah.
It was something that was completely fabricated. But I have now found, as a demonologist, instances where belief in this thing has made it real. And I think that the demonic forces saw an opportunity in this entity and brought it to life to use it for their own purposes. Therefore, now Slender Man may be real.
But in how many cases that you and other demonologists have actually gone to work on, to help someone, that you have found, in fact, that there is no demon there except the demon in the mind of the person, because the person,
a lot of times that can be that way. That's what you have to really differentiate between. You've got to really be careful and walk a fine line between what may be possibly a mental problem or a spiritual problem. But let me tell you this, sometimes these spiritual forces can hide behind mental problems and use them that way. Oh, yes. So you have to be part psychiatrist, you have to be part parapsychologist, you have to be part almost a doctor in some aspects. Now, I'm not telling you I'm not practicing medicine because I don't do that, but you have to have attributes of that to understand what may be going on in that situation. You've got to proceed very cautiously. As I said before, these things are very dangerous, not just to you as an investigator or researcher, but also to your client.
But what happens, Dennis, if you go to a location and you definitely identify the entity as being a demon, and you're unable to get rid of it, to perform an exorcism of some sort? Is there any danger that the demon would get stronger and cause more havoc?
Oh, yes, definitely. You know, I've had a lot of people tell me so. Well, couldn't I just learn to live with this? I said, you could try, but eventually it will get you. It is something that poisons the very atmosphere in which you're living. You have to. There, in this type of spiritual warfare, there are no no man's land to it. You've got to either win or lose.
It's a fight to the finish.
And well, I'm going to tell you this: in my many years of dealing with this, I have myself personally never lost, because I really can't. And as a minister, I can't say that's me. That's the power of God. It's not anything I do. It's the power of God. I don't take credit for it. And God, never being God, doesn't lose. You understand what I'm saying? He's perfect. But a lot of times, these people, the clients that I have, if they don't hold on to their faith in that, then they can end up back in that same situation again. I warn them of that. You know, you have to maintain this status quo against these things. If you don't, then you can fall back.
What in your opinion? What in your opinion, Dennis, is the number one cause of demonic possession?
Okay, I've had a lot of people ask me that. A lot of people come to me worried about that, as a matter of fact. Since I published my first book, Beyond the Shadows, I have a whole section in there on the signs of demonic possession and oppression. There are different levels and stages of all this. But I've had a lot of people go, oh, I've got this sign, and I'm possessed. I said, well, if you're worried about it, it tells me you probably don't have a problem if you're worried about it. But a lot of times, these forces can come into our lives by the very lifestyle that we lead. If we open ourselves up spiritually to darkness, then the darkness will come in. But if we have enough light in us to ward that darkness off, then we don't have a problem. So it is you, the individual, that really invites these things in by the way you live, with the things that you do. And I'm not only talking about engaging in satanic worship, but you can lead what I call party guy lifestyle. You can be into drugs. You can be into alcohol. You can be into a lot of bad things. And this will open the door to your soul to these things many times. So it's like that old saying, whatever you put into life is what you get back out of it. If you put good into it, you get good back. If you put bad in it, you're going to get something bad back.
So basically it is up to the person themselves to use the power within them and the power of God to cast that demon aside.
Exactly. Where there is light, there can be no darkness.
That is so true. That is so true. Listen, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation, Dennis W. Carroll is our very special guest this hour. He is an investigator, researcher, supernaturalist, author, writer, scholar, demonologist, adventurer at large, paranormal consultant, UFO cryptid researcher, and certified paranormal investigator. His website is DennisWCarroll.com. That's www.DennisWCarroll.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. The X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we're here with you Monday through Friday on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and in Europe on Radio X. My name is Rob McConnell. We'll be back after this news break. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Our special guest this hour is Dennis W. Carroll, and his website is DennisWCarroll.com. Tell me about your Bigfoot or Sasquatch incident.
Okay, about 3 years ago, I was in the reported area where some sightings had been of Sasquatch. and it was in the Oconee, which is a county not too far from me. It's called Oconee, which is an Indian name. I don't know what that stands for, but anyway, it's a very large wooded area. And I was with two other guys, and I sent them down in sort of a V formation, like. I stayed in the middle, and they went on either side of me, went down. We had heard some tree knocks that night. And it was a very still night, moonlit night. There was no moon at all. It was a moonless night. And it was in summer. And I had with me a monocular, which is for night vision monocular. And sometimes it's in the dark. This thing can hurt your eyes after a while looking through it, you know. But it's very, very handy instrument to have. Trust me, you do not know how darkness truly is when you're in the woods in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. There's no street lights, no nothing. Even the stars wasn't even putting out that much time. There was so much leaf cover. Anyway, we had heard some tree knocks. And so I sent them on either side of me, and I stayed in the middle to see if they could flush something back up towards me. All of a sudden, they'd been gone for about 5 minutes or so. All of a sudden, I heard a tree knock to the left. And then in a few minutes, I heard a tree knock to my right, and then one directly behind me. I'm thinking, God, am I surrounded out here, or what's going on here? And, well, about that time, I heard something coming back up through the woods, and I thought it was one of the guys coming back. That's what I really thought, because they hadn't been gone that long. But I could still see their flashlights a little ways off, and I'm thinking, why is he starting back, you know? So I raised my monocular up, and just about the time I did, I caught just a quick glimpse of something went behind a tree. And honest to gosh, it looked like, from what I could see, it was just caught a glimpse of an elbow-like with long brown, and I say light brown hair hanging off of it. And it hit, going through there, it hit a 6-foot sapling there next to it, and the sapling was still shaking.
Wow.
And I could not kick myself for not raising that thing up a couple of seconds sooner. I could have seen all of it. But this thing, I got up immediately and went directly to the tree that it went behind. It was a big, huge oak tree. And like I say, these were very thick woods. And I could not hear any. I didn't hear it moving anymore.
Right.
Couldn't see any movement. I went to that tree. This thing is supernaturally gone. I mean, I look up the tree. Did it climb the tree? I don't see anything up there. I mean, and I had, up until then, had heard many accounts and read many eyewitness accounts of people spotting these things, and they disappear like this. And to me, I always thought, well, they probably didn't see it, or they didn't, you know, they weren't tracking him right or nothing. But I now vouch for them. These things can disappear in a very distinctly supernatural way.
Now,
what we're dealing here with, I've discussed this with a lot of people. To me, although I've never actually, we got in that very same area, we found 18-inch footprints.
Ooh.
Oh, yes, sir. And to me, that was a very dramatic, although I won't call it really a sighting. It was a really a clue of what I could have seen. To me, there again, like it lit another fire into me. I want to know more about that. I want to go back and I want to, you know, really, I want to see this thing. If it's real, if it's out there, if it does exist,
but
I want to see it full on.
Tell me, Dennis.
Now,
Dennis, I know
around there, they have mountain lions and bears. This wasn't anything like that. This was something that moved very much like a person would move.
Now, I know that you've studied portholes, and I was wondering if it's possible that Bigfoot or Sasquatch has the ability to use these portholes to, you know, seem to vanish in plain sight.
Yes, sir. Well, I'll tell you, Rob, I have done a lot of studying over the years of the portal thing, and to me it would cover a lot, not all, not everything, but a lot of paranormal activity. To me, I think if portals do exist, they may occur in different ways. You may be able to, and a lot of witchcraft and dark magic is geared with their rituals to doing nothing but opening these doorways. So I think you can open these doorways through that type of activity.
Right.
You can also open these doorways through perhaps even thought activity, as we said before, by belief and thought. on these things. And also, these portals may also be actually naturally occurring type things. That if you're in the right place at the right time, you might, see something that comes in. So to me, it would make more sense, although I'm still thinking a lot about this. I haven't come down on the side on this yet. But to me, it would make a lot of sense with Sasquatch and Bigfoot, whatever name you want to give him. He has 100 names, believe me. If you want to come down on the side of this thing truly existing, how could it have been here all this time?
Right.
Without anyone bringing one back. I remember the thing about the incident about the mountain gorillas in Africa. I think it was Clyde Butman that finally brought one back. Until then, they were legends.
Yeah.
Until he actually brought one back, and we have them in zoos now. We know they do exist. If this thing has been naturally living with us all along, I just don't see how it has been that clever to escape being caught or captured or brought back in some way, fashion or another. But to me, it makes more sense to think this thing might be what I call a walk-through. It may be coming through from somewhere else.
Interesting.
And not what you would say is indigenous to this place, to this world we're in. And I have seen instances where dogmen have been reported, werewolves have been sighted, all types of really strange creatures that are sighted, and they don't really, if you ever see anything like that, Rob, the one thing that's going to strike you right off the bat is this doesn't really belong here. It's just not natural in this world. I've even seen, I've had a very dramatic UFO sighting, and that was the first thing that struck my mind when I saw this craft. This doesn't belong.
Tell me about your UFO experience.
Well, it happened about, I think it's been about 6 years ago now. And I was uptown walking for my health. I had a little trail that I walked uptown, a small town here where I live. And I had about a 2-mile, path that I would walk every day just for health.
Right.
And I was up there one day. It was in the fall. It was late in the day. It was almost dark, but not quite dark, twilight. And I stopped uptown, and like I say, this was on a Saturday afternoon. This town, there was nobody up there. There was no traffic that much. I stopped kind of, cooling off a little bit before I got back in my car. I wasn't even thinking a thing about anything like this. And for many, many years in the paranormal, I've always studied thousands of case histories of UFOs. I've been fascinated by the subject. I've seen other strange things in the sky. To me, though, it always came down to this. I believed about 90% of it was explainable as being misidentified or something else. And then that 10% I was never sure about. Well, that day I saw that 10%. I was standing there on the sidewalk at a fence. I was just kind of cooling off before I got back in the car. I looked up and towards the horizon, and very low-hanging clouds. I've been watching them all day because in my walk I didn't want to get caught in the rain. I thought, low clouds always rain usually. And in and out of the clouds, I saw this shadow moving. And the closer it got to me, the more defined it was. Although it was still in and out of the clouds. It was a huge, solid black, football field size triangular craft of some sort. It had no lights on it because, like I say, it wasn't quite dark. Any lights I could see on it. It had a very slight purplish glow to it, and it was absolutely eerily silent. Made no sound at all. It came over my head and disappeared back over the horizon. I estimate its airspeed in excess of 500 miles an hour.
Whoa.
It was so close to me, I could have hit it with a rock. And it was absolutely silent. I have seen everything that man has made to fly. I've even seen spy planes. I've seen a lot of things like that. This was something that I have never, ever seen. And if we do have something like that, I don't think we do, but if we do, we could take over this world tomorrow. I mean, this was something so far out, it just blew my mind. I'm sitting there, it's a jaw-dropping moment. I've even got a phone in my pocket, never once thought about taking it out and trying to get a picture, but there's no way I could have gotten a picture. If you're expecting something like that, you can be ready for it, but I wasn't. So, but I will be next time, hopefully, if it ever occurs again. But after this is when it really got strange. And I tell about this in my last book I wrote, The Road Unseen, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, if anybody wants to read it. I tell about the aftermath of this. I told a few people about this, and even did a report to MUFON on it, and they never got back. I don't know if they ever got that report or not. I feel like it was intercepted. But then very strange things, Rob, began to happen in my life. It was almost like I was living the Mothman prophecies.
Yes.
You know that movie? That's like John Keel went through. I felt like I knew what he went through. Black, unmarked government cars began to buzz my house from time to time. I was followed from place to place in many instances. My mail was tampered with. I had some of the weirdest, strangest phone calls you've ever heard. I live in a residential place, and several times I could tell some things around places someone had been on my property, and I lived here for like 25 years. That's never ever happened before. My life I began to get a little paranoid, and anybody would, because you never knew when they were coming, and there was no way I could ever get a picture of them because I never knew. But the last incident, and since I wrote that book, matter of fact, it started back up again a little bit. And every once in a while, they kind of like let me know they're still there. My partner, who was involved in a group with me at that time, he also helped co-wrote one of the books with me. He was also followed. He didn't believe me, I don't think, at first, and then he called me back one day, Dennis, I just got followed home from work by a black SUV. And we could tell they were government because they had government tags. But I never got a chance to really get a good picture of one. They never would present themselves. They are always in the dark or something. But the last time I saw one, I was coming out of the local Kmart. And out in the parking lot, I saw them sitting up there.
Wow.
And I said, oh, well, I'm just going to confront these guys. Enough is enough of this. I'm going to let them know that I know what they're doing. This time they're playing a little game here with me of some sort.
Right.
So about halfway out in the parking lot to them, Rob, something stopped me. He said, no, don't do it. Really? It was almost a feeling like if I walked out there, something bad would happen to me. And I've never been one to let anything like that ever stop me. But that was one day that just the strangest feeling that came over me. And some of my friends told me later, well, it's a good thing you did. Maybe if you had one out there, we'd never seen you again. That would have been it. You could have disappeared. Never. But I have had, matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this. This was one of the last incidents I had a few months back. I was on another radio show that I was doing, and on that radio show, and I'm not going to do you this way, but on the radio show I was doing, I told them, I said, if the men in black are listening to me, I said, I'm going to give you an invitation to come see me, And the guys on the radio show, don't come see us at the studio here. Don't come see us. But I was kind of just half jokingly doing that, But a few months later after that, I got an answer to that. It was when one sort of late evening there again, like the UFO incident, wasn't quite dark. I had stopped at a convenience store not too far from my home. There's a big parking lot. It has a McDonald's and a lot of stuff around, a huge parking lot.
Right. And
a little ways out in the parking lot, when I come out of the store, I'll see this showroom-looking 1964, 65 black Cadillac sitting out in the parking lot.
Was it Elvis?
And it stopped me immediately because it was so brand new looking, I've seen a lot of old cars around, but this was, so new looking. And I'm looking at it, and while I'm looking at it, honest to goodness, now, I wasn't hallucinating. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. Doing that, I was in my right mind. I wasn't even thinking about anything like that at the moment. And I stopped, and I'm looking at it, and suddenly this weird greenish glow comes on inside that car.
Wow.
And I'm about probably, estimate maybe 20 yards from it, something like that. I'm a pretty good ways away from it. And when the glow comes on, I can see there's two men in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. They are wearing black suits and black ties. And they're both, and they got sunglasses on now, as dark as it is. And they're both staring at me. They're both looking at me intently.
Right.
And I'm looking back at him, and I'm saying to myself, this cannot be real. This cannot be happening to me. This is it's too far-fetched, Nobody's ever going to believe it. That's the first thing you always think when you see something like that. No one's going to ever believe this. So I reach in my, I'm going to get a picture of this.
Okay. I
reach in my pocket, and I grab my cell phone, and I left it in my truck. So I said, heck, I got, about that time, the light goes out in the car. And I'm heading to my truck, which isn't that far away. I look back, and it's starting to ease out of the parking lot there, out of the parking space, on in the parking lot. I jump in my truck, and honest to God, Rob, by the time I got my truck cranked and looked up, they were gone. I mean, gone. And
wow.
It was a huge parking lot. There's no way they could have got gone that quick. Mm-hmm. No way humanly possible. I went all the way up to the highway, looked both ways, rode around a good while, never saw them. So I told my friend about this later on. He said, well, you know what, Dennis? I think you got an answer to your invitation. I think they wanted me to see them.
Wow. You get a lot of these experiences, and I'm just wondering, why you?
That's the very thing I thought. Why me? I'm nobody special. Yeah. Why are this happening to me? Why am I seeing these things? Why are these things in the spirit?
Right.
And I have had a lot of other things happen that we don't have time to get into, but it's almost as if, I tell you what I think it is.
Okay.
And here's what I've told other people. I wrote this in my book. I think the harder you look at the paranormal, mm-hmm. the more likely it is to look back at you.
Interesting. You and I have to take a break. Please stand by. X-Zone Nation. Dennis W. Carroll is my special guest this hour. His website is DennisWCarroll.com, and we'll both be back on the other side as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Wow. This guy has had more experiences than Carter has pills. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle.
reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Dennis W. Carroll is our guest this hour, Exonation. His website is denniswcarroll.com. And first of all, Dennis, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great hour. But I'd like you to tell us all about being a certified paranormal investigator.
Okay, well, I had someone several years ago. They asked me, they said, well, how long have you been a paranormal investigator? I said, it seems like my whole life. It's been over 40 years in this now. They said, well, do you have credentials? And I said, well, no, I really didn't think I needed any. I do have, certain degrees, but I said no credentials as a paranormal investigator. And they said, well, how can you prove it? So I got to thinking about that. I said, well, evidently some people need proof. So I found a course that would certify me, although I really, I learned a few things out of it. It was pretty neat. But I went ahead and took the course, and they actually certified me. And actually having... I took, a test, and it was a small course. It wasn't college related, but they do certify you. So I said, well, I've got my bona fides now. If anybody else asks me, I can say I'm certified. Of course, I've had a lot of people tell me I should be certified anyway, but that's another story.
That's for another show. Hey, listen, Dennis, as I said, it's been great having you with us. What are your final words that you'd like to share with the X-Zone Nation tonight before we say goodnight?
All right. Well, I thought to go relate back to what we were discussing earlier. Be careful what you think. Sometimes if you think too much and dwell on certain subjects, you can, in many ways, draw these things to you. And as I said before, lifestyles that you live can detrimentally affect you sometimes if they're not good lifestyles. So even eating healthy, living healthy, with a healthy and spiritual outlook on life, can go a long ways in securing you to have a happier life.
So what do you plan on doing in the future? You're writing 3 books now. God bless you. I don't know how the heck you're doing that. I have a problem doing one at a time. Are you planning on doing any more investigations in the future?
I've got a few things coming down the line. Matter of fact, I have a nearby forest that some people have reported some very strange activity going on there. Whether it might be Sasquatch related or not, I don't know. But I've had several interesting cases. Matter of fact, of a case in Kentucky, a possible werewolf sighting. So I've got a few cases I'm going to be looking into very shortly. To go along with the writing that I'm doing. My next book is going to be about demonology. As a matter of fact, it's going to be called The Demon Factor Beyond the Edge of Supernatural Darkness. And the next one planned after that is going to be called It's a Strange Universe Out There. And that's going to be mainly about a lot of the experiences I've had with what is termed high strangeness, UFOs and stuff like that.
Once again, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and keep the great work up, and we look forward to speaking to you the next time that you join us here in the X-Zone.
All right. I would certainly like to guest with you again. When I get those books out, we'll talk about this.
It's a deal. Take care of yourself, my friend,
Sounds
and
good.
Watch out for the woods and Bigfoot. With your luck, you'll run into a lady Bigfoot who's just looking for a good-looking man.
Yeah. Hopefully she won't be too much in a romantic mood when that happens.
All right. Take care, Dennis.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye-bye. Exonation. Dennis W. Carroll has been my guest this hour. His website, www.denniswcarroll.com. What a character. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. This is truly a place where people dare to believe. and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you each and every day of the week, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and in Europe on Radio X. Don't go away.